From 1966, that was Paul Revere and the Raiders with their top 5 hit, Kicks, right here on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. And the man who sang lead on that song and so many other hits for the group is joining us right now, Mark Lindsay. While the music of Paul Revere and the Raiders is always relevant, boy, the zeitgeist is certainly on their side in 2019, with a number of their songs being used in the hit Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and featured on the #1 best-selling soundtrack album on Amazon right at this very minute. Mark Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and so is your music. I mean, here you are in a film that is critically acclaimed. It's doing gangbusters at the box office. Was this a surprise to you, or did Quentin Tarantino inform you prior to the film coming out that he was going to use so many of your songs?
No, he didn't. We found out when the music was going to be in the film when they licensed it from Sony, rather, and they obviously have to contact us to sign off on it, which they did. But Tarantino, in the 80s, a friend of mine and I did the soundtrack for a movie called Shogun Assassin, and Quentin is a big fan of the film, apparently, and actually used a couple of cues from the soundtrack in Kill Bill 2.
Oh.
So this isn't the first time he's used some of my music, but apparently, I was blown away. We have actually 4 songs in the movie and 3 on the soundtrack. And thank you, Quentin.
Yeah.
it's a wonderful surprise, and what can I say? I'm very happy about it, obviously.
One of the reviews I read, and I agree with this, having seen the film myself, they were talking about the set design and the props and things like that, and they were saying that this film is sort of a fantasia of everything that was cool and worthwhile in pop culture in Los Angeles in the 1960s, squeezed into one 2-hour and 45-minute movie.
Absolutely. There's a great shot that shows all the neon of the restaurants and clubs and things, kind of at sunset or dusk. And he included all the cool places that all the, in parentheses, cool people went, and well, everybody went in the mid '60s. And the film is so dense. We're actually, I've seen it once, and I'm actually going again tomorrow to see it because there's so much detail in every frame of the movie. Like if it's a bathroom scene, you're going to see all the cosmetics and all the drugs. Well, not drugs. But
I know what you mean.
all the health and beauty aids, will say, that you would have been using at that time. And in every frame is like that. There's whatever the view is, he includes everything that would have been there at that time, and it's like deja vu for sure.
That, of course, was Hungry by Paul Revere and the Raiders. Our guest today is Mark Lindsay, and from what I understand, there's a connection between the song Hungry and another song that's used in the film, Good Thing.
Well, Hungry was a song written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, who also wrote Kicks. They also wrote You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling and about 30 other hits that I don't have time to mention now. But after the release of Hungry, Terry and I were listening to it, and there's, in the chorus, it says, "Hungry for those good things, baby." And we'd listened to it about 10 times because it would just come out on vinyl. And after one of the plays, Terry said, you know, Lindsay, I bet we could write a hit like that. And I said, well, how about Good Things? And he said, yeah. So we sat down and started and finished in not very long, in 1 or 2 sessions, music for Good Thing. So basically, Hungry kind of inspired Good Thing because of the lyric that is in the chorus.
Very cool. You're referencing yourself in that song, yeah. Beyond the connection between those two songs that we talked about, there are some other connections between you and the film as well, aren't there?
Well, Terry and I lived in that house at 10050 Cielo Drive, and in fact, "Good Thing," which is the song that is used in the trailers and also featured in the film, "Good Thing" is one of the songs that Terry and I wrote at the piano in the film. I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But there's a scene where Abigail Folger is playing the little baby grand at Cielo, and the sheet music that she's using is Straight Shooter from the Mamas and Papas, and that's a piece of sheet music that Papa John brought up when they released that album, and he just brought up the music. He thought it was cool and left it with us. And when Terry and I moved out, we left that that piece of music, Straight Shooter, in the piano bench, and that was the piece of music that was on the piano the night that all the Manson's minions came up to do their bad things.
Yeah.
But Terry and I wrote "Good Thing" at that piano. We wrote a lot of the hits that we had in '67 at that piano, and it was kind of eerie to see Abigail playing. I mean, it's obviously not the same piano. Well, it may be.
You never know.
Quentin bought it. I don't know, but it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah. The one track from the soundtrack album we haven't covered yet is Mr. Sun, Mr. Moon. What can you tell us about writing that song?
That was later on, and I can't tell you the inspiration for it because when I write songs, I might be driving down the road and suddenly I get an idea, and I expand on it in my mind and get to the studio as soon as I can and cut it. And Mr. Sun, Mr. Moon is just one of those things that came to me, and I can't explain the creative process because it's a miracle. I don't know how it works, but I'm glad it does.
From 1965, Paul Revere and the Raiders with Just Like Me. Mark Lindsay joins us this hour. You know, getting back to the film, one of my good friends is actor Will Hutchins, who played the part of Sugarfoot on television in the late 50s and early 60s.
Oh, sure. I remember that.
Yeah, he and his wife Babs saw the film, and considering their familiarity with TV westerns of that time period, Leonardo DiCaprio's character is the star of a TV western show that would have been like Bronco or something like that. They really got a kick out of seeing all of that stuff come to life again on the big screen.
Yeah, and I'll bet the Spahn Ranch set, that was a very popular place to shoot westerns. I mean, it was like close to L.A. and looked authentic, and they may have done some of it there. So I have a friend that, actually Michael Lloyd, who's in the music business and been for years, and he said that he actually, about that time, went riding at Spahn Ranch because he had some friends that wanted to go riding, a couple of girls wanted to go. So he took them up there, and after they got through and he said that that's what Spahn Ranch looked like, but at that time, I mean, he really, it was like, Spahn Ranch doesn't exist now because it was a big fire and it was burned.
Right.
But he said that's exactly what it looked like, and he said the girl that gave them the ponies and kind of like guided them was Patricia Kernwinkle.
Wow. Good
and
Lord.
when they were getting through with the ride and bringing the horses back to the stables, Tex Watson came riding up and said, and there was like 2 guys and 3 girls with Michael, and he said, kind of took Michael aside and said, "Look, next time bring the girls but leave the boys at home, which Michael thought was kind of a weird thing to say, but knowing now Manson's cult and how important the girls were to him, and
right.
So he got to see a couple of the important things there too.
Well, unreal. And again, it's a film that just touches on so many things that were happening culturally in Los Angeles, really all throughout the 60s and in pop culture too. It's really, I have to say, it's one of the best, certainly the best movie I've seen this year. No question about it. I mean, it's a phenomenon is really what it is. Go ahead if you wanted to say something else about it.
Well, I was going to say that the first part of the film is paced very, very benignly, and that was exactly the feeling that I had at that time in summer of '67. Of course, this happened in '69, but it still had spilled over. That the mid '60s, it was like slow motion liquid sunshine to me, and it was so innocent at Cielo, and just couldn't imagine anything changing the mood of the whole city that quickly. But the events at Cielo certainly did.
That's for sure. As we start to wrap up here, I wanted to mention a few things that you're doing. A Happy Together Tour 2020.
Yeah, I'm back on that, and we do a lot of stuff in the Northeast, so we'll probably be coming your way, and if we do, come on down and say hi.
And you've got this podcast coming soon. Tell us about that.
Well, basically, I've heard over the years so many things that were wrong about the events of my life. Some of it close to the truth, some of it 180 degrees away from the truth, diametrically opposed, we might say. Mm-hmm. So I thought I've started to write my autobiography three different times, and every time I get it done, I put it away for a couple of months, and I pull it out, and I start reading it, and it's like if somebody else wrote it that didn't want to offend me in any way. And it's all the good stuff and none of the bad stuff.
Right.
Or none of the reality. I mean, the reality is very, very sugary. So every time I say, well, gee, that's what happened, but it's not all of what happened. So the next time I wrote it, I included more of the stuff with warts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And put that away, and then read it again. And this time, I'm going to do an audio podcast, and I'm going to be brutal with myself and tell the way it really went down. And it's probably going to shock a lot of people because with the magazines in those days were giving me an image that was very flattering, but not necessarily the truth.
Right.
So it's time to get rid of all the misconceptions and just put it down the way it really went down. And it can turn into a book after we get through with it. But the podcast is going to be as honest as I can make it, as honest as if I were writing it about someone else that I didn't really particularly care about, but wanted to make it accurate. So that's coming up.
And I think the title is Unspooling the Real, and it's REAL, correct?
Yes, or you could be unspooling the reel of tape, or it could be unspooling the reel of film, but it is unspooling the REAL for sure.
Very cool. And that can be found at marklindsay.com, or?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can, if you want to find out information, you can look me up on Facebook or Twitter or marklindsay.com.
Fantastic. I want to thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us for a bit. And obviously, I wish you continued success with this. We'll all be listening to the podcast, and we'll be seeing you on Happy Together 2020.
Thank you so much for the chance to get some things off my chest.
Well, it's good to speak with you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, sir, and I'll talk to you soon.